Story 1. The Vanishing Road. Is this Devu? It was a quiet, almost eerie night. I had just wrapped up a long, exhausting day at work and was heading home. The clock on my dashboard flashed 2 a.m., and the city streets were completely deserted. The kind of night where the world feels like it's holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. There was no one around, not a single car. No pedestrians, just me, the road, and the endless night stretching before me. I took my usual route home, a road I'd driven down countless times before, almost like clockwork. It was a well-lit street, familiar, comforting. I knew every bend, every turn, every pothole. But this time, something felt off. As I cruised down the road, I noticed the silence. The usual hum of the tires on the asphalt was missing. It felt as though the car was gliding on air. The air around me seemed unusually still, almost unnervingly calm. I looked up at the streetlights. They were flickering, one after another, like some kind of warning. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. As I approached a familiar intersection, that's when it happened. The road vanished. One moment, I was cruising down the same street I'd driven 100 times before, and the next moment, the pavement beneath me was gone. It wasn't like the road was blocked off or closed for construction. No, the entire thing just seemed to dissolve into thin air. I had a split second to process what I was seeing before I slammed on the brakes, my tires screeching as I fought to stop. I was staring at nothing but grass and trees, a vast expanse of wilderness where the road should have been. There wasn't even a trace of asphalt or concrete left behind. It was like the road had been completely erased, as if it never existed in the first place. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me. I grabbed my phone and checked my GPS. My fingers shook as I looked at the screen. The map clearly showed the road, exactly where I was. I blinked. I looked back at the spot where the road had been. Still nothing. The familiar intersection? Gone. There wasn't even a hint of where it could have gone. I was alone in the middle of nowhere. I sat there for a few seconds, trying to process what I had just witnessed. Could it be a trick of the mind? Was I just exhausted from a long day? Maybe I had imagined it. But the GPS said it was there. The map clearly showed it. Yet, I was stuck in a patch of grass. The silence around me felt suffocating. I checked my rearview mirror. The road behind me was perfectly fine, but ahead of me, absolutely nothing. It was like driving into an alternate reality where roads didn't exist. I hesitated. Should I turn back? But where was I supposed to go? There was no road. No sign of a detour. It felt like I had been dropped into some kind of void. After what felt like an eternity, I turned the car around and drove slowly down a small dirt path to get back to the main road. I kept checking my rearview mirror, still not sure if I was imagining things. I finally made my way back to a familiar intersection and breathed a sigh of relief. As I drove through the rest of the neighborhood, my mind raced. How had that happened? Where did the road go? And why couldn't I explain it? The next day, I took the same route, still haunted by the memory of the disappearing road. When I reached the spot where it had vanished, I slowed down, half expecting it to happen again. But there it was. The road. Back to normal. Like nothing had ever happened. The asphalt stretched out before me, just like it always had, as if the glitch had never occurred. I almost couldn't believe it. My heart was pounding in my chest as I passed the same intersection again. my eyes scanning every inch of the road, expecting something to go wrong. But nothing did. The streetlights hummed softly above me. The tires hummed against the asphalt. Everything felt ordinary, even though I knew it wasn't. It felt like my mind was playing tricks on me. But the GPS had been there, had shown the road where it wasn't. My mind couldn't comprehend it. Had I just imagined the whole thing? Or was there something more to this? Was I slipping in and out of different realities? Or was there some sort of glitch in the world around me? As the days went on, I tried to rationalize what happened. I told myself I had been tired, maybe just a little too exhausted after a long day. But deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. The road had disappeared. There was no other explanation that could make sense of it. A glitch in the system? A glitch in my mind? I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something bigger at play, something that I didn't fully understand. I had felt the glitch the moment when the road vanished from reality, and no matter how hard I tried to dismiss it, I couldn't erase the feeling that something was fundamentally wrong with the world around me. I'll never forget that night, driving down a road that disappeared in the blink of an eye. It's one of those experiences that lingers in your mind, constantly pulling at the edges of your perception, making you question the very nature of reality. Could it happen again? Or was it a one-time glitch? Only time will tell. But for now, every time I drive down that road, I can't help but wonder, what if it happens again? Before I dive into the next mind-bending glitch, let me ask you, have you ever wondered if we're living in a simulation? If you're curious about more stories that make you question reality, hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Stay tuned for more unbelievable glitches. Story 2. The same person twice. Is time messing with me? It was a quiet afternoon at the local coffee shop. The kind of place you go when you need to escape the world, to sip your drink in peace, and just let the noise of life fade into the background. I was there, sitting by the window with my favorite cup of tea, watching the world outside slowly drift by. The smell of freshly ground coffee beans and the soft murmur of the crowd created the perfect atmosphere for a little solitude. As I sipped my tea, I casually glanced out the window. That's when I saw her. It was Sarah, a friend from college, someone I hadn't seen in a while. She was walking past the shop, her head down, clearly in a hurry. I smiled, thinking, it's Sarah. I should wave. So I did. I raised my hand and gave her a friendly wave, expecting her to look up and smile. Maybe stop for a quick chat, as she usually would. But instead, she kept walking, completely oblivious to me sitting just a few feet away, staring at her. I thought it was odd. Sarah had always been one to stop and chat, even if she was busy. It was just her thing. She loved to catch up, and I figured she must have been having a rough day. So I shrugged it off and went back to my tea. But just as I was about to take another sip, I saw something that made my stomach drop. Sarah. Again. But this time, she was walking back past the window. And this time, she wasn't hurrying. She wasn't looking down at her phone or lost in thought. She stopped right by the window, looked inside, and spotted me. For a moment, she seemed surprised. Her eyes widened as she waved at me with a smile. "Hey, what's up?" she asked, her voice full of warmth, just like always. I blinked, my heart racing. "Hey, I just saw you walk past a second ago. You didn't see me?" Her eyebrows furrowed, confusion flickering across her face. "No, I haven't passed here yet. I just left the building. Are you sure you saw me before? I froze. Had she passed me already? I clearly remembered seeing her walk by earlier. That much was undeniable. But now she was standing right here, smiling at me like nothing had happened. I glanced down at my tea, trying to process. I could feel my mind working overtime, trying to make sense of what had just happened. I had waved at her. She had walked by, and I had seen her. But now, here she was, the same Sarah, stopping at the window, acting as though we hadn't just experienced that strange moment a few minutes ago. It wasn't just the fact that she walked past me twice. It was the strange certainty I had that the first time she walked past, I had seen her face clearly. I had recognized her, and I had waved. She was wearing the same clothes, had the same expression. Yet, this version of Sarah, the one now standing in front of me, talking to me, was the one who was supposed to be here, right? She had stopped. She had acknowledged me. But the first one, the one who kept walking, was gone. Had she really walked by? Or was that just a mirage in my mind? I felt like time itself had cracked open, just for a brief moment. It was as if two versions of Sarah were existing at the same time. The one who walked past, and the one who stopped, both in the same reality, but at different points. How could that be? How could there be two versions of the same person in the same space in a matter of minutes? I didn't know what to say to Sarah. So, I just laughed awkwardly and said, I guess I'm losing it. Maybe I need more tea. She laughed too, but I could tell she was a little thrown off by my reaction. She didn't seem to think anything was strange. Maybe she just hadn't noticed. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. My mind raced. Had I slipped into some alternate timeline? Maybe this wasn't even the Sarah I knew. Could it have been some glitch where the timeline overlapped and created a brief, bizarre loop? How could I have seen her walk past only to see her again, as though nothing had happened? I tried to brush it off, telling myself I was just tired or that my brain was playing tricks on me. After all, I hadn't seen Sarah in months, and maybe I was just imagining things. But there was no denying it. The memory of her walking by. The certainty in my mind that I had waved at her. It was all there, so vivid, so clear. And yet, here she was, standing in front of me like nothing strange had occurred. The moment had felt so real, so solid. But now I was left questioning whether I had stepped into a reality where time, or perhaps even space, wasn't behaving the way it should. And then it hit me. What if this was something bigger? What if these little cracks in time, these strange, unexplainable moments, were more common than we think? How often does time slip? How often do we walk past the same moment, but never notice? I still don't know what happened that day. I still don't know why Sarah walked past me twice. But I'll never forget the feeling that time had somehow bent around us, just for a moment. A glitch? A slip in the timeline? I don't know. All I know is this. Reality is a lot more fragile than we think, and sometimes we might just catch a glimpse of the cracks. Story 3. The Sky That Changed. A sky that shouldn't be. Stargazing has always been one of my favorite pastimes. There's something magical about stepping outside on a quiet night, looking up, and seeing the vastness of the universe laid out in front of you. The stars, the constellations, the moon. All of it seems so constant, so unchanging. It's like nature's way of reminding us how small we are, and yet how beautiful everything is. One evening, after a long day, I decided to take a walk late at night. It wasn't anything special. I just wanted some fresh air, a moment to clear my head. the kind of night where everything is still, and the world feels far away from the daily grind. As I stepped outside, the night was perfect. The sky was clear. The stars were bright, like little diamonds scattered across a deep black canvas. It was exactly the kind of night you'd hope for if you were to lay down and look up for hours. Everything felt normal. But what happened next? It was anything but normal. I walked for a while, lost in my thoughts, when I suddenly noticed something off. The stars above me, which had been scattered in their usual patterns, began to shift. At first, I thought it was just a trick of the light, maybe my tired eyes playing games with me. But no, it wasn't the light. The stars were moving, not like clouds drifting by, but the stars themselves were shifting positions in the sky, rearranging, forming entirely new constellations. It wasn't subtle either. It was dramatic, rapid. It felt like I was witnessing the universe rewiring itself right before my eyes. I stood there, frozen, watching as the constellations I had studied in school, the ones I had seen on countless nights, disappeared, only to be replaced by shapes I didn't recognize. It was as if the night sky was no longer following the rules. I thought, what is happening? And then, something even stranger occurred. The color of the sky itself started to change. Slowly at first, the deep black of the night began to fade, replaced by a soft, eerie purple hue. It wasn't the kind of purple you'd see from city lights reflecting off clouds. This was a deep, otherworldly shade, as if the sky had been dipped in violet paint. I blinked, unsure of what I was seeing. I shook my head, thinking it was some kind of optical illusion. But then the color deepened. The sky didn't stay purple. It shifted again. It turned a soft pink, then faded into an orange hue, like the colors of a sunset. Except there was no sun. There was only the night sky, pulsating with impossible colors. My heart started to race. The constellations, which had always been my comfort and guide, were now completely gone. There was nothing familiar in the sky anymore. The shapes, the stars, the colors, everything had been replaced. It felt like I wasn't looking at the same sky I'd seen for years, but at something completely alien, like I had stepped into an entirely different universe where the laws of astronomy didn't apply. I could feel the hair on the back of my neck standing up, my pulse quickening as I tried to make sense of what was happening. My brain was screaming at me to look away, to run, but my body wouldn't move. I just couldn't tear my eyes away from the spectacle above me. It was mesmerizing, terrifying, and beautiful all at once. I don't know how long I stood there, but it felt like time had slipped away. The colors continued to shift, swirling above me, and the constellations danced in ways I couldn't understand. It was like I was standing in the middle of some kind of dreamscape, a place where the natural order of things didn't make sense. Finally, I snapped out of it. My legs started moving again, and I turned, almost in a daze, and ran back home. My mind was racing, trying to piece together what I had just witnessed. Had I lost my mind? Had I fallen asleep on the street and imagined the whole thing? Or had something truly impossible just happened? When I got back, I immediately grabbed my phone. I thought if I could just take a picture of the sky, maybe I could prove to myself that what I'd seen was real. But when I looked at the photo, all I saw was a normal, dark sky, the same one you'd expect on any other night. I tried again, convinced that maybe my camera had just been glitching. But each time I tried to capture the sky, it looked the same. No colors, no shifting stars, just the ordinary blackness of the night. I called a couple of my friends, desperate to make sense of it. Maybe they had seen something similar. Maybe they could tell me I wasn't crazy. But when I told them about what I'd seen, they just laughed it off. "Sounds like a bad dream, man," one of them said. "You probably just imagined it." Maybe I did. Maybe I was just overly tired. But deep down, I knew what I had seen. The sky, the stars, the colors. It had all been so real, so vivid. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't some trick of the mind. I had seen something that defied everything I knew about the universe. The next day, I went back to the same spot, hoping for some kind of explanation, some kind of sign that what I'd experienced wasn't just some weird glitch in my mind. But when I looked up at the sky, it was normal again. The same night sky I had seen 1,000 times before. The stars were in their usual places, the blackness of the sky unbroken. No strange colors, no shifting constellations. Just the ordinary sky. I felt a strange mix of relief and disappointment. Relief because it was back to normal, but disappointment because I knew what I had seen. It was as if that strange moment had only existed in my reality. As if, for just a brief moment, the universe had decided to show me something that I wasn't supposed to see. Since that night, I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. What happened to the sky? Was it a glitch in the system? Some kind of cosmic error? Was it a glimpse into another dimension or a parallel universe? Or maybe it was just the universe itself, trying to tell me that we don't really understand what's out there. Whatever it was, I'll never forget the night the sky changed. And every time I look up now, I can't help but wonder if I'll ever see that strange, alien sky again. Or was it just a one-time glitch? Only time will tell. Story 4. The silent phone call. Who was calling me? It was just another ordinary evening. Or so I thought. I was lounging on my couch, scrolling through my phone aimlessly, scrolling past memes and mindless updates. My mind was half there, half not. It was the kind of evening where you just want to escape into the digital noise of your phone and let the world slip by. Then, out of nowhere, my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. No contact name, just a random string of digits. Normally, I'd let it go to voicemail, but something about this call felt different. I don't know why. Maybe it was the eeriness of it. Maybe it was my curiosity getting the better of me. But against my better judgment, I answered. The moment I picked up the phone, I was met with complete silence. No static, no background noise, just pure, eerie quiet. I waited, holding the phone to my ear, my mind racing. What the heck? It felt strange. I thought maybe it was some telemarketer who had dialed the wrong number, or an accidental call. I stayed silent, just listening, waiting for something, anything, to break the silence. And then, just as I was about to hang up, something happened. A voice, but not a voice I was expecting. It was my voice, my own voice, but it was coming from the other end of the line. At first, I couldn't comprehend it. Is someone messing with me? I wondered, but the longer I listened, the more I realized. It was my voice, speaking in my tone, saying words I had never said to anyone. Not recently, at least. The first words that came through were strange, almost cryptic. "You're not ready for what's coming." My heart skipped a beat. I pulled the phone away from my ear for a second, staring at the screen. It was still the same strange number. I looked around my room as if the answer would be sitting in front of me, but there was nothing. The quiet continued. I brought the phone back to my ear, too curious to let it go. "Who is this?" I asked, my voice shaky. There was no reply. Just silence again. But then the voice, my voice, spoke again. But this time, it wasn't just words. It was fragments. Fragments of my own conversations. Things I had said in the past. Moments I had long forgotten. My own laughter. My whispers. My words in quiet moments of reflection. It was as though the voice on the other end was rummaging through my life, pulling up memories I didn't even realize I still carried with me. I heard snippets from an old conversation with a friend, a conversation that took place years ago. I heard myself comforting a relative during a hard time. I heard words I had spoken to myself when I was alone, quiet thoughts that had only existed in the privacy of my mind, things that no one else had ever heard, things I had forgotten. But there they were, echoing through the phone like they had been recorded, stored somewhere I couldn't understand. It wasn't just a little strange. It was deeply unsettling. I felt a cold shiver run through me. It felt wrong, like I had crossed some kind of invisible line that I wasn't supposed to cross. I wanted to hang up. I wanted to just end the call and pretend it hadn't happened, but the voice kept coming. It was me, but it wasn't. I could hear myself say things that didn't make sense. There was a sense of detachment, like the voice was disconnected from time, from space. It was like a ghost of my own self, an echo of my past that somehow found its way into the present. Then, suddenly, everything stopped. The line went dead. I pulled the phone away from my ear, my hand shaking. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Was it some kind of glitch? A prank? But none of that made sense. Who would have a recording of my own voice, speaking from the past, using words I had long forgotten? I quickly checked the call log. The number was still there, but there was something off. The call had no duration, no details, just a blank entry. I checked again, thinking maybe I'd missed something, but the entry remained the same. I felt a strange chill. Something about that call didn't sit right with me. It wasn't just a random misdial or a glitch in the system. It felt personal, like someone or something was watching me, tracking me. I couldn't help but wonder, had they been listening to me all along? Had my every word been stored somewhere, just waiting to come back and haunt me? The voice, my own voice, had been too specific, too intimate. It knew things no one else could know. I didn't know what to do. I tried to shake it off, telling myself it was just a weird technical glitch, that I'd imagined it, or that maybe my phone had somehow malfunctioned. But deep down, I knew something had happened, something that felt like it wasn't supposed to. For the next few days, I kept thinking about that call. I couldn't get it out of my mind. What if it wasn't just some glitch? What if it was something more? Something watching me, listening to me. My phone, my own device, had become something I didn't fully trust anymore. And every time I looked at my phone, I couldn't help but wonder, who was calling me? Was it a glitch, or had something, or someone, crossed the line, stepping into my reality, pulling fragments from my past and turning them into something wrong? I still don't have an answer. But to this day, I can't shake the feeling that something or someone is listening, watching. And maybe it's just waiting for me to pick up again. Story 5. The Missing Hour. Time lost and never found. It was a regular Saturday afternoon, one of those lazy weekends where everything feels calm and slow, like the world is taking a breath before the week starts again. I was at home with my family, enjoying a relaxed lunch. We were all sitting around the table, laughing, chatting, and eating. Just a normal family gathering, nothing out of the ordinary. The sun was streaming through the window, casting a warm glow across the room. I remember it was 1:30 p.m. when I checked the time on my phone. Everything felt fine. The conversation was light, and we were discussing random things. The kind of meaningless chatter that comes easily when you're comfortable with the people around you. I got up to grab some water from the kitchen, a small task that took no more than a few moments. But when I returned to the table, everything felt different. It wasn't anything obvious at first. No one had moved. The plates were still half full. The same food was left untouched. But something inside me shifted. It was as though a quiet, unsettling fog had descended on the room. I glanced at my phone. It said 3 p.m. Wait, what? I froze, the water jug still in my hand. I stared at the time, my heart suddenly racing. I checked the clock on the wall. It too said 3 p.m. But how? How could it be 2.5 hours later? I had only stepped into the kitchen for a moment. There was no way I could have lost that much time. I felt my stomach tighten, and I slowly set the water jug down. What the hell happened? I thought, my mind racing. 2 hours. Gone. Vanished. I tried to calm myself, but panic started to creep in. I asked the room, did anyone else notice the time jump? Everyone at the table paused. My sister, who had been halfway through a conversation about her latest work project, looked at me with a raised eyebrow. What do you mean, time jump? She asked. You were just gone for a minute. My sister continued, a playful smile on her face. We were talking, and then you went to grab water. It only took a second, but it wasn't just a second. I could feel my pulse quicken. My family was acting as if nothing had changed. But I knew what had happened. I hadn't left the table for long, but somehow, an entire hour, maybe even 2, had slipped away. My father, who had been sitting across from me, didn't even seem to notice my anxiety. He just shrugged, returning to his plate of food. Maybe you were just distracted, or you lost track of time. But that didn't make sense. I was fully aware of everything I was doing. I had gotten up, gone to the kitchen, grabbed the water. I was present the entire time. But now, the time had jumped, as if the seconds, minutes, and hours had lost their grip on reality. I turned to my sister. I swear, I just looked at the clock right before I got up. It was 1:30 p.m. How is it suddenly 3 p.m.? She just laughed lightly, as if I were joking. You're just overthinking it. Time flies when you're having fun, right? Her words should have reassured me, but instead, they made the situation even stranger. Overthinking it. How could I have imagined losing an entire hour or more? I had been completely aware, and now the whole afternoon felt off. I looked at the clock again. Still 3 p.m. The world outside the window, the sunlight, all of it was unchanged. It was like the universe had just skipped a beat, and I had somehow missed it. But how? I couldn't shake the feeling that something had happened to me, something that I couldn't explain. My mind raced to find an explanation, but the more I thought about it, the less sense it made. I tried to make light of it. Well, I guess I'm just getting old. Time flies when you're having lunch with your family. I laughed nervously, but inside, something felt wrong. My own words sounded hollow. It felt like I was trying to convince myself that everything was okay, even though my body knew better. As the afternoon continued, I couldn't stop glancing at the clock. The hours stretched on as usual. but I kept feeling that nagging sensation at the back of my mind. 2 hours were just gone. Vanished. Where had they gone? What had happened in that time? Why couldn't I remember? I went over everything in my head again and again. I remembered getting up. I remembered grabbing the water. But after that, it was as if my mind had just blacked out. There was nothing in between. That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, thinking about it over and over. The more I thought about the missing time, the more unsettling it became. It felt like I had somehow stepped through a crack in time, like I had been taken to some place where time wasn't linear, where the rules didn't apply. Had I lost that time in another reality, another dimension? Had I unknowingly slipped through a portal? Or was it some kind of glitch in the fabric of space-time itself? I kept telling myself I was being paranoid. But there was a part of me that knew what had happened wasn't just in my head. The next few days passed, and life went on as usual. I kept my thoughts to myself, pretending I was fine, trying not to bring up the missing time again. But it lingered in the back of my mind like an unanswered question. Every time I looked at the clock or glanced at my phone, I couldn't help but wonder if time would ever snap again, if another hour would slip away without explanation. And to this day, I can't shake the feeling that something, somewhere, has been slightly out of sync with time. Time isn't as solid as we think it is. It's fragile, like it can stretch, bend, or break, just when we least expect it. Maybe it was a glitch in the matrix. Or maybe it was something else entirely. Something I'll never truly understand. But for now, I'll just keep wondering, where did that time go? Story 6. The Unopened Door. A room that shouldn't exist. It was a quiet evening, and a kind of night where the air feels thick with stillness, like the world itself is holding its breath. I was staying at an old hotel tucked away in the middle of nowhere. It wasn't the kind of place you'd pick for a luxurious getaway. It was one of those run-down spots that looked like it had been frozen in time, with worn-out carpets and faded wallpaper that seemed to echo memories of the past. The hotel had a strange charm to it. Not exactly comforting, but there was something about its isolation that made it feel like it belonged to a different era. It was the sort of place where you couldn't help but feel like you were being watched by the ghosts of travelers who had come before you. The atmosphere was thick with a sense of history, but not in a romantic, nostalgic way. It was as though the hotel was holding on to something that it wasn't meant to, like it was stuck in time. I had spent the evening having dinner in the dimly lit restaurant downstairs. The food wasn't great, but it was enough to fill me up. Afterward, I decided to retire to my room and call it a night. The long hallway of the hotel was eerily quiet, the flickering lights casting long, distorted shadows along the walls. I turned the corner and reached my room, room 212. The same one I had checked into earlier in the day. The hallway felt unusually silent as I approached the door. I noticed that the lock was still securely in place, just like it had been when I left. It was a strange sensation, but I brushed it off, eager to get some rest. I took out the key from my pocket and inserted it into the lock, twisting it slowly. The sound of the click echoed in the silence. I opened the door, expecting to see the room I had left earlier, but something was wrong. I blinked, my hand still on the doorknob. The room before me was not the room I had checked into. The layout was all wrong. The furniture was different. It wasn't the bed I remembered, and the armchair was placed in an odd corner, facing away from the window. The wallpaper that I had seen earlier, a faded floral pattern, had been replaced with deep red walls, decorated with abstract art. It felt like walking into someone else's room, like a version of reality that didn't quite match my own. I took a step back, my heart pounding in my chest. This wasn't my room. But how could that be? I had the key in my hand. This was the room I had been assigned. I glanced down the hallway, then back into the room, trying to convince myself that maybe I was just tired, maybe I was imagining things. But no, there was no mistaking it. This wasn't my room. I stepped back into the hallway, feeling a sense of unease creeping up my spine. My mind raced, and the first thought that came to me was that maybe there had been some mistake with the room assignment. Maybe I had been given the wrong key. The hotel wasn't exactly top-notch, after all. Mistakes like that wouldn't be unheard of. I turned on my heel and walked down the dimly lit hallway to the front desk. The bell above the desk jingled as I entered, and the receptionist, a woman with tired eyes and a bored expression, looked up from the computer screen. I explained the situation, telling her that I had been assigned to room 212, but when I returned, the room I found was completely different. She didn't seem alarmed, just slightly irritated. "You must be mistaken," she said, not even looking at me as she typed on the keyboard. "You're on the right floor. Room 212 is where you're supposed to be," I insisted, showing her my key, trying to explain that the room I had opened was not the one I had left. She didn't seem to care much, just shrugged and said, "The room should be fine. Are you sure you're remembering it right?" She handed me a new card for room 212, as though dismissing me as someone who had gotten confused by the low light or maybe just a little too tired. Her response left me feeling even more unsettled, but I took the card, trying to push down the rising anxiety in my chest. When I walked back down the hallway and reached room 212 again, I paused before opening the door. My mind was buzzing with questions, but I tried to shake them off. I inserted the key into the lock again and opened the door. This time, everything was exactly as I had left it. The same bed, the same floral wallpaper, the same furniture. The room had returned to normal. It was as though the other room, the one I had seen just moments before, had never existed. My heart pounded in my chest as I stood there, staring at the familiar surroundings. Had I imagined it? Had I somehow walked into the wrong room? I shook my head, trying to make sense of it. I locked the door behind me and collapsed onto the bed, still feeling the weight of what had just happened. How could a room that didn't exist in my reality just vanish without a trace? Why had it looked so real, so tangible? And why was it so out of place? It was like stepping into an alternate version of the hotel, where the rules didn't quite apply. I tried to convince myself that I had simply been exhausted, that I had made a mistake or imagined things. But deep down, I knew better. That room hadn't just been a figment of my imagination. It had been real. I had seen it, felt it, and now it was gone. I tried to sleep, but the sensation of something being out of sync lingered in the back of my mind. Was this a glitch in the Matrix? Was the hotel stuck in some kind of time loop? Or was I simply losing my grip on reality? I didn't know, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very, very wrong. The next morning, when I checked out of the hotel, I couldn't help but glance down the hallway once more, half expecting to see that room again. But there was nothing. Just the usual hallway, the usual doors. Nothing unusual, but I couldn't forget it. The room that shouldn't have existed. The room that had disappeared without a trace. It's the kind of thing that stays with you. The kind of thing you can never quite explain, but will never forget. Story 7. The Parallel Text Message. Was this me or my doppelganger? It was one of those lazy afternoons where the world feels a bit distant and time stretches out in the most uneventful way. I was lounging on my couch, scrolling through my phone without much thought, my fingers mindlessly flicking through social media feeds and random notifications. The sun outside was bright, casting a soft glow on the room, and everything seemed perfectly ordinary. Then I got a message, but it wasn't from anyone I knew. It was from me. Yes, you read that correctly. The message was from my own number. I blinked at the screen, trying to process what I was seeing. It wasn't a prank. It wasn't some weird glitch in the system. It was from me. The text itself was simple, almost too simple. Look out the window. I stared at it for a moment, unsure of what to make of it. I didn't recognize the number attached to the message, but that wasn't even the strangest part. The strange part was that the message was from my own phone. Maybe it was some sort of weird glitch, or a spam message. I shrugged it off and sat back, assuming it was just a mistake or an odd error. But then, a curious, almost nagging feeling tugged at me. I couldn't ignore the feeling that something wasn't right. I stood up, walked over to the window, and looked out. That's when things took a turn. Across the street, I saw someone walking. At first, I thought it was just a stranger, someone who happened to be wearing similar clothes to mine. But as my eyes locked onto that figure, my heart skipped a beat. It was me. It was me, but not me. The person walking down the street looked exactly like I did. The same clothes, the same hair, even the same expression on their face. I was staring at my exact reflection in real life, but this wasn't a mirror. This was someone walking down the street, moving in the opposite direction of where I was standing. I froze. The world around me seemed to stop. I blinked several times, trying to make sense of what I was seeing, but there was no mistake. It was me. Or at least, someone who looked exactly like me. It was as if my doppelganger was out there, living its own life, walking down the street while I stood at my window, watching in disbelief. I could feel my pulse racing as I stared at this other version of myself, walking with purpose down the street. But what was even more unsettling, it wasn't like some dream or hallucination. This was real. I was seeing it with my own eyes. The figure was moving, walking just like I would, even pausing at the corner, glancing up at the sky before continuing on its way. I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I couldn't take my eyes off of it. And then, as if to confirm that something truly bizarre was happening, my phone buzzed again. It was the same message. From me. I looked at the screen, my hands trembling as I read, "Don't follow me." I stared at the text for a few seconds. What the hell was going on? I immediately texted back, "What do you mean? What is this?" The phone buzzed again, and the same simple reply appeared, "Don't follow me." My heart was racing. The message wasn't making sense. The tone felt urgent, like a warning. I turned back to the window, my mind spinning. My doppelganger had disappeared, vanishing around the corner and out of sight. But how could that be? I hadn't seen anyone else. There was no one else walking in the street when I looked again. It was as if they had never been there at all. I walked back to my couch, shaking now, unsure of what to think. Was I dreaming? Was I losing my mind? I looked at the phone again. The number was still mine. It wasn't some random stranger. It wasn't a glitch. I had received a message from myself. But how could that be possible? The more I thought about it, the more questions flooded my mind. Could this have been some kind of parallel reality? Was there another version of me somewhere, living a different life? How could that even happen? Was it possible that I had somehow crossed into another universe, just for a brief moment? I checked the time, hoping that the weird feeling would go away, but nothing felt normal anymore. My mind was racing. I was exhausted from thinking about what I had just seen, what I had felt, the feeling of seeing yourself outside, but not being able to touch it, was something out of a sci-fi movie. But this wasn't a movie. This was my reality. I couldn't help but text again. "Where are you?" There was no response. I waited for a few minutes, feeling the room get colder, the silence hanging heavy in the air. But nothing came through. The rest of the day felt surreal. I went about my routine, but the feeling that something was out of place never left me. I couldn't stop thinking about that message, about my other self walking down the street. Was it really me? Was it some sort of alternate version of me that I had accidentally crossed paths with? What did the message mean, and why did it say, "Don't follow me"? Was it a warning? Was I not supposed to know about this version of myself? I tried to dismiss it, telling myself it was a weird coincidence, just my mind playing tricks on me. But deep down, I knew it was something else, something beyond normal, something I couldn't explain. Since that day, I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. I still haven't gotten another text, but the question lingers in my mind. What was that? Was it a glitch in the matrix? Was it a sign that there's more to reality than we understand? Or was it something else entirely? I don't know, but I can't shake the feeling that I'll never forget that day, that moment when I saw myself, and when I realized that reality, as I know it, might not be as solid as I thought. Story 8. The repeating day. The groundhog effect. There are certain moments in life when time feels like it's slipping through your fingers, when reality itself seems to flicker and shift. But what if that feeling was more than just a momentary lapse? What if time itself decided to play a joke on you, forcing you to live the same day over and over again, but not in a subtle, déjà vu kind of way? No, this wasn't a glitch that lasted for a few minutes. This was an entire day, a full 24 hours. Lived twice or maybe more. It all started on a typical morning, the kind of morning that feels like it could belong to any week of the year. I woke up at 7 a.m., feeling strangely refreshed, almost unnaturally so. My alarm hadn't even gone off yet, but somehow I was already wide awake, alert, as though I'd slept more than I had. I stretched, sat up, and started my day like I would any other. I shuffled into the kitchen, made myself a cup of coffee, the rich aroma filling the air, the sound of the coffee machine, the steam. Everything felt normal. As I went through the motions of getting dressed and preparing for work, I couldn't shake this odd feeling in the pit of my stomach. Something was off, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. When I stepped outside, the first thing I noticed was that the sky was darker than usual, even though it should have been a bright, clear morning. It wasn't the kind of overcast sky that comes with clouds. It was darker, almost as though someone had dimmed the sun. A soft, gray haze seemed to linger, stretching across the sky in a way that felt unnatural. But I shrugged it off, chalking it up to the weather playing tricks on me, or maybe just a gloomy morning. I walked down the street, the usual route I took to get to my car, when something strange happened. I saw the same person walking toward me, the same person who always walked down this street at this time. A woman with a bright green scarf. She passed me by, and I didn't think much of it until I turned the corner, only to see her walking past me again. The same person, in the exact same spot, doing the exact same thing. I froze for a moment, my heart skipping a beat. Was I seeing things? Had I somehow missed the fact that she'd walked by before? I shook my head, convinced that I was just tired, maybe imagining things. But then I noticed something else. The street, the atmosphere. Everything felt too familiar. The sounds, the smells, even the way the wind blew seemed like a carbon copy of what I had just experienced. I brushed it off, though, telling myself I was just tired and needed to get to work. The whole thing felt off, but I tried to ignore it. I grabbed my keys, got in my car, and drove to my usual coffee shop. When I arrived, the barista was already there, setting up, just like she always was. I stood in line and ordered the same drink I always got, a caramel latte with extra foam. The moment she handed it to me, I noticed that the receipt said the exact same amount as it had earlier. I felt that strange sensation again, like I was living in a replay of my own life. The exact same drink, the exact same exchange, the exact same smile from the barista, like everything had been rehearsed. I tried to push the thought out of my mind, but it was becoming harder to ignore. As I walked out of the coffee shop, I saw the same woman with the green scarf walking down the street again. Same place, same time, as though she were stuck in some kind of loop with me. I stared at her, my mind racing. This couldn't be happening. Could it? It wasn't just her. The whole day began to play out like a movie I had seen before. Conversations I had with friends seemed to happen twice. Once at breakfast, once at lunch. I talked to my coworker about the same project, used the same exact words, down to the last detail. Every minute felt like a rerun, an exact copy of the day before, as though the universe had hit rewind and I was now stuck in the middle of the replay. I was beginning to feel like I was losing my mind. Every step I took, every conversation I had, was a perfect match for what had already happened. Even the small, inconsequential moments, like the way I dropped my pen or the way the sunlight hit the windowsill, repeated themselves with eerie precision. By the time I got home, I was completely disoriented. I sat down, feeling like everything I knew had been turned upside down. Had I slipped into some alternate timeline? Was I living in a parallel world? Or had time itself fractured, pulling me back into the same moments over and over again? I checked the time. It was 6 p.m., the exact time I had checked earlier. The same clock on the wall, the same minute hand ticking forward. But I felt an overwhelming sense of déjà vu. This was all too much. The world around me felt static, stuck in a never-ending loop. Finally, everything stopped. The clock ticked forward, and the world felt normal again. The day was still ongoing, but the cycle of repetition had ended. My heart slowed as the overwhelming sense of déjà vu faded, but the lingering feeling of something being off didn't. I had no explanation for it. It wasn't a dream. I knew that. I had lived through it, felt it, experienced every moment. And yet, it was as though time had somehow skipped a beat, like the rules of the universe had taken a temporary break. It was as though I had crossed into a space where time wasn't the ruler anymore, where everything could repeat itself over and over without explanation. The experience left me unsettled, unable to shake the feeling that I had somehow slipped into an alternate reality. Or maybe, just maybe, I had caught a glimpse of a deeper glitch in the matrix, a crack in the very fabric of time itself. I've tried to forget about it, tried to tell myself that it was just a strange coincidence or an overactive imagination. But every now and then, when I look out the window or meet someone at work, I can't help but wonder if it will happen again. Will I wake up tomorrow and live the same day over again? Or has time fixed itself? For now, I don't know. But I do know one thing. The day I lived twice is something I'll never forget. Story 9. The perfectly empty room. The impossible space. It was a regular Saturday afternoon when I went to visit my friend's new apartment. They had just moved in, and everything still looked fresh and new. The boxes scattered around. The smell of fresh paint in the air. It was the kind of place that felt like it was still in transition, like it was on the verge of becoming a home, but hadn't quite reached that point yet. I knocked on the door, and my friend, Sarah, greeted me with a smile. She was excited to show me her new place, and I was happy to see her finally settling in after months of searching for the right apartment. We chatted for a few minutes, catching up on life, and she gave me a tour of the apartment. Everything seemed normal at first. The kitchen was functional but still bare, with just a few unpacked boxes. The living room had a few pieces of furniture, a sofa, a coffee table, and a TV still wrapped in plastic. I could tell she was in the process of making the space her own. But then something happened. As we walked down the hallway toward what I assumed was the bedroom, I noticed a door at the end of the hall that I hadn't seen before. It wasn't there when I first entered, or at least, I didn't remember seeing it. It wasn't in any of the photos she had shown me either. "Hey, what's this room?" I asked, pointing to the door. Sarah gave me a puzzled look. "There's no room like that in this place," she replied, frowning a little. She seemed genuinely confused. But there it was, right in front of me. A door, just like any other in the apartment. I raised an eyebrow. Maybe it was just a storage closet. But no, it had a doorknob and everything. Curiosity got the better of me, and I reached for the handle. When I opened it, I was immediately struck by what I saw. It wasn't a closet. It wasn't a utility room. It was a perfectly furnished living room, one that I hadn't seen anywhere in the apartment before. The furniture was arranged just like in a real living room. A couch, a coffee table, bookshelves lined with books, and a window that overlooked the city. It felt so real, so normal, as though it had always been there. But it wasn't on the floor plan she had shown me, and it wasn't in any of the pictures she had taken before moving in. My heart skipped a beat as I stepped inside the room. It felt out of place, but not in a scary way. More like I had walked into a room that didn't belong in this apartment. The walls were a warm, neutral color, and the sunlight streamed in through the window, illuminating the room like it had been staged by a designer. It looked so normal, so complete, that I couldn't wrap my mind around the fact that it didn't belong. I turned to Sarah, who had followed me into the room. She was standing in the doorway now, her brow furrowed in confusion. "Sarah, what is this? This room wasn't here before. Where did it come from?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. But the more I looked at the room, the stranger it felt. The room itself didn't seem like part of the apartment I had just walked through. It was almost too perfect, too pristine, as if it had been placed there by some force that wasn't quite explainable. "I don't know. It's not supposed to be here," Sarah said, her voice low and uncertain. She stepped into the room as well, looking around just as bewildered as I felt. "I swear, this door wasn't here when I first moved in, and I've never seen this room before. It doesn't make sense."